On today's show, we'll meet a couple who want to shed light on a hot topic issue, mining and Minnesota's Boundary Waters canoe area. How long? Well, they're going to spend a year to prove a point. And there's gold in the trees this time of year. We tag along with a few who bring out 3 generations of their family members to help with, you guessed it, making maple syrup.
You got the crawfish, I'll take the pheasant.
Next up, it's time to go wild in the kitchen, or should I say, go wild with the wild game ingredients. This recipe has a little bit of everything.
Very good.
And our Minnesota Bound Classic this week takes a look back at an Ely legend. You may know her as the rootbeer lady. Those stories and more, next.
Minnesota Bound. Brought to you by Minnesota's Select GMC dealers.
Hi everybody, Raven and I welcome you to the show. Our first story is about the Boundary Waters canoe area in Minnesota, a most picturesque, beautiful spot, yet over its history, quite controversial. And the controversy continues. Our story is about a couple who decided to spend a whole year traveling the Boundary Waters to show us why we should be concerned about mining operations proposed nearby.
I'm Dave Freeman.
I'm Amy Freeman, and we're spending a full year in the Boundary Waters. We're spending a full year out here to raise awareness about copper mines that are being proposed along the southern edge of the wilderness area.
So we paddled in on September 23rd, and today is our 158th day in the wilderness.
We learned about the proposed mines right near the edge of the wilderness area, and we thought, you know, that's a bad idea for this wilderness area, and we felt compelled to speak out in order to protect it.
As we were thinking about what we can do, you know, everybody has a different skill set, and for us, you know, we're canoeing guides and dog sledding guides, so actually being out in the wilderness and documenting it, we felt like that was the best thing that we could offer. The sulfide ore mines that are being proposed are right on the southern edge of the wilderness. Any pollution from those mines would flow directly into the wilderness. And this type of mining has never been done anywhere in the world without causing water pollution.
That word sulfide needs a little more explanation because that's where it gets tricky. Mining in that rock with the sulfide in it, that gets exposed to air and water and produces sulfuric acid and leaches heavy metals, and it has a terrible track record of pollution.
It is a total group effort. We have volunteers that are coordinated through the Campaign to Save the Boundary Waters that come in about every 2 weeks with food and supplies that we need.
Get the sled geared up here.
Our expedition manager is based in Ely. His name's Levi.
As the expedition manager for the year in the wilderness, the main part of my job is keeping Dave and Amy happy and healthy. Typically, Dave and Amy will send me a list of food and supplies, and then it's my job to get all that stuff ready, packaged for them, and then to put together volunteer teams that then run those resupplies into the Boundary Waters.
It's a gorgeous day, guys. That entails about a half a day's journey of skiing their supplies out to them in the Boundary Waters.
They think the cause is important and they want to come out and meet us, and we are very appreciative.
Hey guys, welcome to our campsite. You know, we look forward to meeting people because we can talk to them about the wilderness and the issue, but we also rely on the rice and beans and pasta and fresh veggies that they bring into us every couple weeks. Looks greasy. Oh!
Oh my God! Thank you.
That is good. Oh.
I can't remember the last time I've had a donut.
I've read a lot about them, and To meet them in person was just kind of inspiring. You know, it really hit me that they're really out here 365 days and really maybe pay attention to what they're doing.
We spend a lot of time gathering water, caring for the sled dogs, a lot of time documenting, taking photos and videos.
They were working their tails off out there when it comes to social media and blog posts.
This time of year, baths are few and far between. We bathe about once a month and it's about a 3-second dip. Oh yeah! Good job, ladies!
It's just an untouched beauty. It's a natural beauty that you can't find anywhere else, maybe in the world. It's something that's here and free for everybody, and it's being threatened by, you know, interests that aren't thinking long term. And this is something that I want to have here forever for your kids, and generations to come.
I think there are certain places that are just iconic. I mean, they're a part of America, like the Grand Canyon and Yosemite. And the Boundary Waters is one of those. It truly is like no other place on Earth. And we're really lucky to have it right here in Minnesota.
We're not just talking about the threat of one mine. It's about keeping the integrity of the watershed. And so the ultimate goal is to keep the Boundary Waters watershed protected.
Oh, yes.
Coming up, spring means maple syrup time, and this family takes their tradition seriously, and it tastes so sweet.
Minnesota Bound. Brought to you by Minnesota's select GMC dealers. Rapala Ice Force. Borderview Lodge. And by Star Bank.
Welcome back. You know, in Minnesota, our families have lots of traditions, the walleye opener, the deer opener. But in March, that tradition often is gathering sap to make maple syrup. Well, we found just such a family. Travis Frank has the story.
It's time to celebrate. Spring has arrived and there's gold in the trees.
Sugar time. It's sugar time. It sure feels fine.
Fine indeed. Clark Optimus celebrates spring with music and maple syrup.
That's good.
A school teacher by day and folk singer by night has spent more than 20 years tapping his giant maple trees.
Basically, when we tap on a tree, you look at this is a fairly young one, so we go 15 inches diameter, you can tap one tap. 24 inches, we figure you can put 2 taps in. 36 inches, you put 3, 48, 4. You know.
This year he's teaching a newcomer, his son Mason, which now makes 3 generations in this family business.
We used to do it this way when we started over 20 years ago by hand. Mason, you want to try it? You tap it, you drill it in 3 inches, 2-degree angle, it'll run by gravity, and then of course you put the tap in. See, this is the tail end of the run, but it's really, this one's really kicking in. And then we'd run it to a 5-gallon bucket.
Warm days draw sap up the tree.
It's bringing the sugar from the ground up to the leaves and to get nourishment.
Frost pushes it back down. 1 drip at a time, buckets fill.
Oh yes, the mother lode. We color code these so we can see them in the winter.
Then, it's time to make maple syrup.
Okay, let's go to the next round.
Back at the sugar house, Clark's father Ron stokes the fire.
We do it the old-fashioned way, and it's kind of a family thing that we do. It has to be good and hot.
219 degrees to be exact.
219, it is still maple syrup. It doesn't become crystallized sugar. You push it past 219, it becomes crystallized.
This is a good hot one. This is coming up pretty nice. Ooh, yeah. 216 there. Ooh. It's taking the moisture out of the syrup. It's taking the sugar, separating the sugar from the water. It's just a pure maple syrup. We don't add anything to it. It's just natural.
Batch after batch, Ron tries to keep up with the trees.
We boil it right down to what you see is what you get.
In the end, 30 gallons of sap boils down to only 1 gallon of maple syrup.
Handmade all the way until basically we bottle it. Well, it's all handmade, I guess. So, yeah, it'll work.
We enjoy the woods. We enjoy the outdoors. It's kind of something physical. And we do get some rewards out of the maple syrup.
In this family business, success has nothing to do with money.
We're going to have I think it keeps going the way it is, we'll have a record year.
Just dip your finger in there.
Okay. How is it?
Yeah, good.
So they collect every last drop, knowing soon it will all be over. The leaves will bud and sap will disappear. Then it will only be music. Until next year, when the gold starts flowing again.
Will recipes from old, no, they won't be sold.
Lots of wild game.
Coming up, the perfect wild game recipe for just about everything in your freezer.
Closed captioning from Minnesota Bound is brought to you by Lake of the Woods Tourism.
Time now to go wild in the kitchen. Laura, Shara, and Chef Jim have a recipe for cleaning out all the wild game out of your freezer.
So it's time to empty out your wild game freezer today on Wild in the Kitchen. I'm here with Chef Jim Kinberg from Firelight Grill House and Cocktail Bar. And Chef Jim, I'm noticing lots of wild game goodness on this cutting board here.
You are correct.
What are we making?
We're going to be making Minnesota wild game gumbo. So we have all these great local ingredients, which we've harvested. We've got some venison sausage.
Love it.
Some duck, some pheasant, some crawfish, some walleye. And I love these recipes because it really does give us a chance to empty out those freezers, make something wonderful out of it.
All right, so what are our first steps here?
We're gonna make the roux. First step is just establishing that base. So not only is this gonna create that foundation of flavors, it's also gonna help thicken our gumbo.
And what's in roux?
Roux is basically just a little bit of oil and it's flour. And it's taking a long time, slow and low, stirring it constantly, establishing that nice, almost milk chocolate kind of brown. All right, second step, we have what the Cajuns refer to as our trinity of vegetables. So we have our onions, our green bell pepper, celery, and we're also gonna add in a little bit of garlic. Just dump it right in there. You can hear that nice little sizzle. So the vegetables are actually gonna saute right in that nice hot roux. We wanna get those translucent, then we're gonna bring it up with some stock.
Smells delicious, but it looks a little thick for gumbo, so how are we gonna thin this out?
You are correct. We're gonna thin that out with some of this great pheasant stock we have over here.
Homemade.
Homemade, exactly. One of my tricks, I save all the legs and thighs off the ducks and the pheasant, simmer them with some water, some carrots, onions, celery, make this great stock. And then the meat I actually pull right off the bone, and that's gonna, kind of enrich our gumbo.
Awesome, so we're using the whole bird, I love that.
We are using the whole bird, definitely.
All right, now this is awesome pheasant stock, but if we wanted to cheat it a little bit, could we use chicken stock from the grocery store?
You sure could. It's not gonna be as great, but it will definitely work. Bring it up to a nice little simmer, let it thicken, and then we're gonna add the remaining ingredients. You got the crawfish, I'll take the pheasant and the
Got
duck.
the walleye?
I've got the venison sausage, and we're just gonna put that right in there.
The true gumbo crawfish.
There we go. We need to season it up just a little bit.
Sure do.
I've got some blackened Cajun seasoning magic there. If you want to just sprinkle in a couple of generous pinches. I think it's ready. We're just gonna put it in a bowl. Top it off with just a little bit of steamed rice.
Gumbo's not complete without rice.
Exactly. And some green onion. Gonna top it off.
All right, don't forget to empty out your wild game freezer and make some Minnesota wild game gumbo. I'm gonna go in for a taste here, Jim.
How is it?
Very good.
Very good. Excellent.
Minnesota Bound, brought to you by Connecticut, Tracker Boats, and by Totem Resorts.
Time now for our Minnesota Bound Classic. This story also is about the Minnesota Boundary Waters Canoe area, but also about the most famous person who ever lived there. Her name was Dorothy.
She lived a life in Mother Earth's garden. Her neighborhood was made of islands. Her neighbors were wild critters. And if there was a neighborhood ruckus, it was usually made by loons. This was Dorothy Moulter's way of life, a life spent living alone in a wilderness cabin on Knife Lake, deep in the heart of the BWCA, Minnesota's Boundary Waters Canoe Wilderness Area.
She was just finishing up nursing school, right out of Chicago, and didn't know anything about the North Country. But she was just fascinated by the whole thing, just absolutely fascinated.
Dorothy Moulter became an unusual icon of the wilderness. Visitors came to the BWCA to seek solitude, but also to visit Dorothy.
She liked people. She wanted to share her feelings for the Boundary Waters and for the wilderness area that she was living in.
To thirsty canoeists and anglers, she also became known as the rootbeer lady. Using water direct from Knife Lake, Dorothy would make 10,000 to 12,000 bottles of her tasty root beer every summer. Limit 2 per person.
Living in such a rustic setting might seem romantic to most of us, but life was not always easy for Dorothy Moulter. Sometimes she worried about her food supply. There's one story about the day she took her deer rifle, found a wolf-killed deer, scared away the wolves, helped herself to a quarter of the deer, and left the rest for the wolf pack.
And she did have bears that came near, but she always had her gun nearby. And I think she had the feeling that she could take care of herself.
To try to simplify her was very difficult because there was a lot of facets to Dorothy. One thing about her which is very interesting, she had large hands, extremely large hands. Well, those hands that could take an axe and split wood with anybody could also set the leg, a broken leg on a chickadee. I've seen her do it.
Dorothy also had a spirit. She celebrated Christmas without electric lights, but her cabin was made festive by ornaments made with her own hands. And Dorothy had a dry sense of humor, much of it told as hints to her visitors.
She liked to laugh a lot. She couldn't stand complainers. And she got a lot of them that would show up there. You know, the weather was bad, or the big one was, of course, too many people. Of course, everybody figures the other people are too many people. It isn't them that's too many people. You know, so it's kind of funny. And she would listen to this for a little bit, and she'd say, well, if you don't think you're getting what you should out of life, you're probably getting what you deserve. She'd cut him right off at the knees.
One day in December of 1986, Dorothy didn't respond to a radio call.
They found her near the wood stove. She had just put wood in the stove, and so that's where they found her.
At the age of 79, the root beer lady was gone. But her memory lives on, and now in an Ely museum, visitors still come to her cabin.
Her winter cabin, we have tried to reproduce it almost as it were as if she was still living in it. We have her bed, we have her dining room table, we have all the furniture in there is furniture that she had. We even have her own clothing that she wore, and people come and they say, I remember Dorothy in that shirt.
She would probably be appalled. Dorothy never wanted any kind of a monument or memorial or anything. She figured when she was gone, that was it. She was a part of the woods and she'd vanish with it. But people couldn't let that die. There were just too many people loved that woman and figured this is a piece of history and this is somebody who should be remembered.
The local folks say the Knife Lake canoe route isn't as popular as it used to be, and there's only one good reason why. Dorothy isn't there anymore.
You know, I wonder how many of us could live like Dorothy lived. But then some folks say, you know, when you're alone, you're in darn good company. Well, that about does it for us. Remember, introduce the kid of the great outdoors. I'm Ron Sher, and of course, always the star of the show, Raven. And you know it.
Transportation provided by Premier Transportation. Call 1-800-899-7433. For more information on these stories and more, catch us on the web at mnbound.com.